Mahilig ako magbasa ng mga lumang periodiko. The late 1800s was the age of revolutionary newspapers. Yan yung panahon kung kailan ang tinta, papel at katapangan ay naging mga kasangkapan sa pagbuo ng bagong Pilipinas. It was also a time of iconic journalists who understood that the battle for independence would be fought not only on the battlefield but on the printed page. I am Mona Veluz. I hunt down ancestors and chase fascinating stories in Philippine history. La República Filipina was first published on September 15, 1898. Its inaugural issue coincided with the opening of the Malolos Congress at the Barasoain Church. The newspaper was founded and edited by Pedro Alejandro Paterno, president of the Malolos Congress and advisor to President Emilio Aguinaldo. The paper became the voice of the First Philippine Republic. I saw an extant copy of the maiden edition of La República Filipina at the León Gallery. The front page carried the image of Aguinaldo. The paper articulated the ideals of a newly imagined nation. It captured the moment when Filipinos transitioned from revolutionaries to citizens of a republic, even as the shadow of another colonial power loomed. It appears to have been short-lived, possibly ending after its maiden issue, which makes any existing copy rare and historic. La Independencia was also founded in September 1898. It represented defiance against the new colonial masters. Published by Antonio Luna and Juan Luna, the newspaper was printed secretly. It lived on the run. As the Philippine-American War erupted, its printing press was moved from Manila to Pampanga, Bulacan, Pangasinan, and Tarlac, even mounted on train cars to evade capture. Antonio Luna led and personally financed the paper, turning it into an unapologetic advocate for full independence. After Luna's assassination in June 1899, the paper continued briefly under Rafael Palma's leadership until American advances forced its final issue on November 24 that same year. Its newsroom read like a roll call of revolutionary intellect. Among its regular writers were Rafael Palma, Jose Abreu, Fernando Maria Guerrero, Clemente J. Zulueta, Cecilio Apostol, Epifanio de los Santos, and Felipe Calderon. Among its contributors were Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, Jose Palma, Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista, Apolinario Mabini, Mariano Ponce, Antonio Regidor, and Ferdinand Blumentritt. Even women played key roles, with writers such as Rosa Sevilla de Alvero and Florentina Arellano. And guess who else wanted to be a staffer for La Independencia? Cebuano writer Vicente Sotto. León Gallery holds the fragile application letter of the 21-year-old Sotto, written at a time when Cebu was bracing itself for conflict and censorship was tightening its grip. Sotto followed up with unmistakable confidence, bordering on audacity, offering both his subscription and his services. Sotto moved on to self-published newspapers that the Americans repeatedly shut down. La Justicia, then El Nacional, then Ang Suga. He remained a newspaperman through and through. As a senator, he authored the Press Freedom Law, also known as the Sotto Law, in 1946. The original Vicente Sotto had a reputation. He moved with a force of presence. His authority came from an almost reckless commitment to speak, publish, and act in the face of powerful adversaries. Something that we are still seeing in his direct descendants, Senate President Tito Sotto and Pasig Mayor Vico Sotto. One of the most enduring names from the late 1800s is La Solidaridad. It was created as the voice of Filipino reformists in Spain. Many don't know that it was revived in Manila in 1900 during the American colonial occupation. This Manila revival carried a Filipino translation titled Ang Pagkakaisa. No one knows who the publisher was, as it did not publish an editorial box. The paper reported news from the countryside, literary pieces in Spanish and Tagalog, and nationalist commentary, all during the Philippine-American War. It was a crucial mouthpiece for Filipino aspirations at a time when open resistance was dangerous. What makes this revival of La Solidaridad remarkable is the cast of writers who filled its pages, often under pseudonyms to protect themselves. Among them were Jose Palma, writing as Juventino, who would later pen the lyrics of the national anthem. Pascual H. Poblete, known as Gat Pandan, a Katipunero and later called the father of the Tagalog newspaper. Cecilio Apostol, the master poet writing as Ruben, and Teodoro M. Calao, T.H. Avant, who would later become director of the National Library. Together, they used the newspaper to foster unity or pagkakaisa among the people under a new colonial ruler. Issues of these three newspapers, La República Filipina, La Independencia, La Solidaridad, and Vicente Sotto's application to be a war correspondent are going under the hammer at the Asian Cultural Council auction on February 14 at the León Gallery. Taken together, these three newspapers tell the story of nation building in real time. La República Filipina gave voice to a republic in the making. La Independencia refused to surrender the dream of freedom even while on the run. La Solidaridad carried the intellectual fire of reform into a new colonial era. On their pages, we see a nation insisting on its right to exist. O, diba?
Meow meow.